Hi everyone, I'm not Sam Flanagan. I'm not the director or the managing director at Amethyst Productions. I'm Amanda Prosser, and I sometimes make films, and I sometimes record sound for films, and I was the director of photography when we made Place Your Bets with Sam Flanagan and Amethyst Productions. So the first thing to say about this particular day when we were shooting is that it was a horrible day. It was alternately sleeting or just delivering really cold rain. Can't have been more than about 3 degrees the entire day, and we were all standing around getting damp from the sleet and the rain. And a very bright but overcast sky. So one way and another, absolutely the last day that you would choose to shoot a film outdoors in Northern England. But it was the day we had, so we had to work with it. And I think kudos to Sam for keeping the entire crew motivated doing this, because a crew that aren't being paid and keeping them focused on what they're doing and delivering their best work in conditions like this takes some doing, and Sam did it pretty well. So you'll see that the film starts with this walk and talk sequence, and those are hard to do. The actors have to walk at just the right speed so that they're delivering a particular line at a particular place in the street, so that everything else falls in with that. And it turns out surprisingly hard for actors to do that. They either walk too fast because they're thinking about walking and forget their lines and end up getting to the key point too soon, or they concentrate on their lines and tend to shuffle along a bit slowly so they don't get there in time for the key line. And bear in mind too that pretty much the entire crew is walking backwards in front of them while trying to keep the microphone out of the shot but close enough to hear what they're saying, having the two cameras having a good shot of the actors without wobbling too much but not getting sight of each other, and everybody's trying not to bump into trees and street lamps or trip over curbstones while walking backwards. It's a tough thing to do. And so by the time we'd all rehearsed that and had a few goes at it, we'd used up a lot of our time when we were all very cold and damp. So that walk and talk, an ambitious place to start. But I think we've kind of pulled it off. So I mentioned we had 2 camera operators here, and we're shooting with 2 cameras. We've got my Sony FS5 and a Panasonic GH4. Quite different cameras really, and mainly the Sony FS5 is kind of 3 times the size and weight of the mirrorless GH4, and so it will sort of wobble and jitter to a different amount as it's being handheld. But so I think our 2 operators did a pretty good job of making the sort of look of the shots match, even if we didn't quite get the colour balance and exposure to match in both of them. They both shoot 10-bit codecs, so there is a bit of scope to improve that in the edit, I think. But it is what it is. So you can see the actors are getting wet, and we can see sleet falling in this shot. And this is where the sort of contrast problems come in, because you can see the actors are all wearing black. The sky is really bright. And so trying to get a shot in which both of those things look nice is tricky to do. Quite apart from the amount of sleet and rain that was falling out of that bright sky. Ideally, we wouldn't have shot on a rainy day at all. Ideally, we would have had a massive HMI or something to give us a little bit of light and shade. But we didn't have any lighting, we didn't have a gaffer, we didn't have an electricity supply. This wasn't Hollywood. We had to cope with what we had. As the number of actors in the shot increases, it would have been nice to go back in for single shots, a bit like this one of that character. It would have been nice to have more of those of the other actors as they say key lines, but we just didn't have the time or the energy or the body temperature left to do that really. I think there's a moment too where poor old Ewan, the sound recordist, gives us a cameo appearance of the microphone and all the wind protection on it. But, to be fair, he was as cold and shivery as all the rest of us by this point. And with trying to keep a microphone with a heavy blimp and dead cat on it out of the shot, when it's a wide shot like that, for any length of time is a serious challenge. Had we had a script supervisor, for example, they might have spotted that appearance of the microphone and prompted us to reshoot that. we didn't have a script supervisor any more than we had a gaffer, so we have to cope with what we've got, and we did make a film, so, you know, we can pat ourselves on the back for that, if nothing else. Now we're coming to my favourite shot of the whole film, which is where we look up as if from the camera's point of view. There it is. Everybody leans over towards the camera and their heads converge. You can see that actually as soon as we tilt the camera towards the sky, it gets covered in rain and sleet. And we also had to put some light in there, because otherwise everybody's faces were just completely silhouetted against that bright, bright sky. And I think we actually put a bit too much light in. We get another look at it in a minute and you'll see that the actor's face is quite overexposed as he leans in. But there we go, we live and learn. And I think it's fair to say that you learn a lot more when conditions are not perfect and when things don't go according to plan than you do when everything just goes swimmingly. I've worked with bigger crews where there's somebody whose job it is to keep the rain off everything, or, you know, somebody else comes and puts lights in and gets the exposure just right and this kind of thing. Whereas here, you know, there's a dozen of us trying to do it all between us. And it's fair to say too that all the actors that aren't actually in shot at any time are probably running around doing some other job to help things along, carrying gear or whatever. So yeah, look, we did a thing. We made a film despite the appalling conditions, and you know, big up to Sam for keeping the whole crew motivated and willing to stay on and see it through, because not everybody could do that.